Eastern Cape. All right, continuing, of course, with this legacy of Steve Biko, you would know that he was a man of medicine. He studied to be a medical doctor at the University of Natal, Durban Medical School. Still commemorating the anniversary of his death, of course, we have in studio Professor Dhai Ames, who's the director at Wits University's Steve Biko Centre for Bioethics, and she's here to talk to us about Steve Biko, of course, and the bioethics seminar that will take place today. That is where the Gauteng Provincial Health MEC, Dr. Gwem Ramokgopa, will be giving a lecture. Good morning to you, and thank you so much, Prof, for joining us here on Morning Live.
Good morning, and good morning to your listeners.
Thank you so much indeed. Tell us a little bit about the Steve Biko Centre for Bioethics. Why was it put in place in the first place?
Yeah, it was established 10 years ago, and this was specifically as a reminder to us as medical doctors how low we could stoop when it comes to ethics. Because if you recall, when Steve died in detention, he was actually being cared for by doctors, district surgeons at that time. And these were the doctors that colluded with the apartheid government and covered up the harms on Steve Biko. Yeah. And it is for that reason, Steve Biko's legacy lives on in a medical environment, reminding us of our, of our problems as doctors, and the fact that we are fallible as well, and how low we could also stoop.
Yeah, you make mention of a very important word, accountability, more so by the medical practitioners. And in recent days, we hear of the word neglect. It has actually become very prevalent in our government institutions. For example, let's take into consideration the Life Isidimeni tragedy. What do you make of the current state of our health care institutions, and of course talk a little bit about the Isidimeni?
Okay, yes, it is a huge problem. I think compassion and caring has somehow gone from the way we actually practice medicine, and this is not all doctors or healthcare workers, but it seems to be the trend nowadays, where medicine is no longer a vocation of caring, but it is just a job. And you mentioned Life Isidimeni, and we can see that medicine was just a job in the situation of Life Isidimeni, where mentally ill patients were herded onto trucks like cattle and put into so-called NGOs, which were supposed to provide health facilities for these ill patients at a much cheaper rate than Life Isidimeni. Life Isidimeni charged just over 300 rands, and these NGOs were going to charge about 112 rands a day for the patients. I mean, that is ludicrous. How could one care for a patient on that little amount of money? So it is a huge problem, and while there are very many good people in the practice of medicine, there are many that actually do infringe on our ethical responsibilities in medicine.
Yeah, staying with the Life Isidimeni incident, do you think there's been a change within the health department, more so in terms of following the ethics and accountability after that incident?
I think within the health department there has been a lot of discussion on how to avert a situation like this happening in future. I think the Gauteng Department of Health is trying to work very hard under the leadership of Dr. Gwem Ramokgopa. I think we must also remember that she's taken over someone's problems, and it is a long journey for her and a difficult road for her. But I am confident that with her at the helm of the Gauteng Department of Health, we will probably see change coming.
There is indeed, of course, a long way to go. I mean, if one takes a look at a number of cases that were brought about by patients who were not happy, more so on what happened to them due to negligence. But let's just go back to the seminar itself today. But just before we talk about the seminar, let's talk about the centre. If you look back to 10 years ago, what has the centre achieved?
I think the centre has achieved quite a remarkable amount, both within the institution nationally and internationally. And what we've managed to do is institutionalize bioethics in the healthcare professions. We've managed to get teaching into the curricula of healthcare professionals, the students, and that is not only at the level of medical, but it's across the board in terms of all health science faculties. We've managed to get postgraduate programs that will train the trainers, so training people to do the teaching. We've also managed to do quite a bit of research, which then feeds into policy, both nationally and internationally as well. So yes, I think the centre has been quite a forerunner when it comes to an ethos of bioethics. Becoming a way of life.
All right, well indeed. Now the seminar taking place of course today under the theme A Just Health System, Our Common Vision. Talk to us about the theme.
So, you know, I think all of us, no matter which camp we belong to, have a common vision, and that common vision ought to be access and equity in healthcare. We all need to strive towards universal access to healthcare. Yes, we have a common vision, but how do we get there? And the overall theme of the seminar is shared responsibilities. So how do we share the responsibilities? Do we leave it on the doorstep of the Department of Health, or do we as civil society, as academics, and as members of communities, do we also contribute? Obviously, we all have a responsibility towards this. Having said that, I think it's important to remember that health cannot remain in the domain of the Department of Healthcare only. You know, health is so dependent on social determinants, so other areas need to come in as well. You know, you need education, you need electricity, you need clean water, so other areas need to contribute towards achieving this sort of health.
All right. And as we celebrate, of course, 10 years of the establishment of the centre and the 40th commemoration of the death of Steve Biko, what do you think, or what type of doctor do you think he would have been?
I think Steve would have been a very caring and compassionate doctor. He was that type of individual. I'd met him when I'd gone to medical school. But I also think that Steve would have been that strong man that would have taken on the problems that we see in terms of the lack of delivery when it comes to healthcare. And I think he would have taken on the system quite strongly.
Oh, yes, indeed. Well, we've been asking our viewers this morning of their favorite quotes from Steve Biko. Do you have your best?
Yes, I think for me it is, in time in South Africa, we will see for all a more human face. And that human face, that aspect really touches me.
Oh, wow, now, well, that's where we'll leave it, Prof. Thank you so much for coming through and talking to us here on Morning Live, and all the best with the seminar.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much indeed. The seminar will be held at the Wits School of Public Health Auditorium on education at the Wits University, of course, taking place today. And that's how we say goodbye here on Morning Live. Thank you so much for having watched the show. We'll see you bright and early tomorrow morning, Leanne.